Alright, so this is our second lesson video for chapter 13 and 16. Hopefully, I'm having trouble getting my room dark enough. Like, I have so much aluminum foil on my windows right now. I'm trying to block out the sun as I'm making these, so hopefully you can see everything. Again, if you can't, then you can access the the PowerPoint on my website. Alright, so this is lesson 2 of chapter 13 and 16, so we're still in chapter 13, talking a little bit about deforestation. Alright, so we ended with boreal forests and deforestation in lesson video 1, so now we're going to focus on tropical forests and deforestation. So tropical rainforests, they're found in Central and South America, Africa, and Southeast Asia. The deforestation in these areas is likely due to population growth and interacting economic, social, and government policies. We'll focus on a whole chapter. Chapter 7 is all about population growth and the issues that it causes. And so deforestation of tropical rainforests is one of them. If the people need a place to live, or if they need to farm crops, they're going to have to clear land to do that. And the problem is that they like to use slash and burn agriculture. That's where they go in, they cut down and burn parts of the forest to build their home and to farm their crops. And they're not doing any replanting of the forests. And so the problem is, the more this happens, it becomes unsustainable and they're cutting down more than it's being able to regrow. So this just kind of shows where tropical rainforests are, and so of course we have the equator right here across the middle, and so you can see there's some in South America, there's some in Africa, and then there's some in Asia, like we talked about. So another area that's suffering from deforestation is tropical dry forests. Sometimes they're called tropical temperate forests. They're found in India, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Egypt, and Brazil. The prime causes of deforestation in this area is using the wood for heating and cooking. So in other words, they're cutting down the wood to actually burn it to heat their homes or to use it for cooking, like to boil water or something like that. And so again, that would be an issue with the bigger your population, the more people who need wood for cooking and heating. So, chapter 13, mainly on forests and deforestation. So chapter 16 is all about trash, our solid and hazardous waste, our trash. So a lot of us produce a lot of trash, and that becomes a really big problem considering how many people live in the world. So we won't finish the whole thing because there'll be a third lesson video on this too. So solid waste. The U.S., of course, generates more solid waste per capita than any other country. Surprise, surprise. You know I've been telling you since day one, we win in almost all categories. And by win, I mean lose. In 2012, it was almost 2 kilograms per day. So that is a lot of trash per person. Highly developed countries, like the United States, produce much more waste than less prosperous countries. So the richer or more well-off a country is, the more waste it produces. Materials that we throw away could be repaired, reused, or recycled in less affluent nations. Okay, so if you've ever heard one man's trash is another man's treasure, that applies in this case. Things that we throw away, some other countries, they would be glad to use it. And think about restaurants. They throw food away at the end of the day just because they can't serve day-old food. There's nothing wrong with the food, but we just throw it away. Whereas in a third world country, they would be glad to eat that food, even if it was days old. So, how does our solid waste break down? Alright, so if you look, this huge area right here is all from mining. So when we mine our fossil fuels, coal, oil, natural gas, there is a lot of waste. So that's why in chapter 17 we focused on stop using fossil fuels because they pollute a lot, start using from chapter 18 our renewable resources, and this is one of the reasons why. Agriculture has a large chunk and industry has a pretty large chunk. The last little sliver is municipal solid waste. Municipal solid waste is just kind of like what you could think of as household waste. So it includes things like paper and paperboard products, yard waste like leaves, pine straw, tree trimmings, things like that. Food waste that you throw away, plastics, metals, rubber, leather, wood, glass, and other. So in other words, think about everything you might throw away, that would be considered municipal solid waste. Now I know it seems like a super tiny thing in this whole pie diagram, a little sliver, but still that's a large amount when you take into account that everybody has a lot of this. So how do we dispose of it? Because I mean, we don't just throw it in our backyards. Solid waste is regarded as material that is no longer useful and should be disposed of. We have 4 ways to dispose of our solid waste. We can dump it, take it to the dump. We can bury it. We'll talk about that when we talk about landfills in just a second. We can burn it. I burn yard waste all the time. My husband and I, we've been cutting down a lot of trees since, you know, we've been at home so much. And what do we do when we're done with them? We chop them up and burn them in our fire pit. And you can recover it and turn it into something else useful. So those are our options. So let's talk about dumping it. So long ago we used to have what was called an open dump. You saw the trash, like it just looked like this. You would drive up, see these mounds of trash, you would dump off your stuff, then you'd move on about your way. Well, this is an old method that's now considered illegal because obviously, as you can imagine, if you have a huge pile of trash, it's very unsanitary. And it hosts a lot of pests like rats, flies, things like that. They come down and swarm and just, you know, try to eat whatever's there. As the stuff is decomposing in the open dump, it releases methane gas, and hazardous materials leach down into the soil and the groundwater. So methane gas is a problem because it's very combustible, which means it's flammable, catches on fire easily, and so fires were actually common. And when these big trash heaps would catch on fire, it releases a lot of acrid smoke. Acrid smoke just means it's really dangerous, has a lot of hazardous chemicals in it, because you're just burning pretty much everything. Like, it's trash. Nobody knows what all is in this huge pile. So again, we don't use open dumps anymore, but they are used in other parts of the world. So, how do we dispose of our municipal solid waste if we're not using open dumps anymore? Well, we like to use sanitary landfills. So waste is compacted and buried under a shallow layer of soil. So you take your waste, they compact it, they put it in the ground, and they cover it. And that helps keep, you know, the rats and the flies and all the different things that come in open dumps. It kind of keeps them out. It also usually has these barrier layers underneath to keep any of this stuff from leaking into the groundwater and things like that. We also use incineration, which is just burning. So we burn waste. It reduces the volume by 90%. So if you have something this big, after you burn it, you got something like this big. So that helps because, as you can imagine, in America we produce a lot of trash. And then recovery. Yard and food waste can be converted into compost. Metals, paper, and plastic are recycled. So in other words, we need to stop before we throw something away and see, well, oh, wait, this banana peel could turn into compost and then I could use it to fertilize my plants. Or, you know, this plastic Coke bottle can be recycled, and so then I could use that instead of throwing it away into a landfill. Even if it's a sanitary one, they can still fill up very quickly. Alright, so let's talk a little bit more about these sanitary landfills, and then we'll be done with lesson video 2. So sanitary landfills, they do not pollute the local surface or groundwater because, like I said, they're lined underneath. So they have a double liner system at the bottom of the landfill, and so it collects any of the leachate, and again, leaching is just leaking. So it's called the leachate, and so that's just the liquid that seeps through the solid waste, and so instead of leaking down into the groundwater, it's collected in that barrier, and so it can't pass through. And the gases that are produced during decomposition. And so then problems are, there's still that methane production. It can be collected and used to produce energy because methane is one of the parts of natural gas, so we can burn it and produce you know, electricity if you can turn a turbine or something like that. The leachate seepage from unlined landfills can contaminate water supplies. So if you have a landfill that's not properly lined, or the liner somehow tears, or something gets a hole in it or something like that, then that leachate becomes a problem. And the other problem is, like I said, landfills fill up over time, and few areas welcome new ones. Like, what if all of a sudden your parents got a phone call tomorrow and it's like, oh hey, right on the other side of your yard we wanted to put a landfill, are y'all okay with that? Nobody wants a dump in their backyard. So the problem is, the ones we have are filling up, and nobody wants to have one near their house, so there's not a whole lot of areas for us to put a new one. Alright, so we'll end there for lesson 2, and then lesson 3 video, we'll knock out the rest of this.